The Grand Archive of the Galactic Union stretched endlessly above Ambassador Vexterra, its crystal spires housing the collected knowledge of 10,000 civilizations. Her iridescent scales shifted with anxiety as she prepared to present her findings on humanity to the High Council. After 3 years of covered observation, she believed she had compelling evidence that humans were too unstable to join galactic society. The council chamber hummed with the bioluminescent patterns of 200 species representatives. Vexterra's research team had compiled thousands of hours of surveillance, carefully selected to support their conclusion. The humans were simply too unpredictable, too emotional, too prone to violence. "Esteemed Council," she began, her translator converting her harmonic speech patterns to standard galactic common. "I present conclusive evidence that the species known as humans poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability." The holographic display activated, showing carefully curated scenes of human conflict, resource exploitation, and environmental damage. Vexterra deliberately omitted the context: the wars fought against oppression, the resources used to build hospitals and schools, the growing environmental restoration movements. "Their society lacks the fundamental hierarchical structures that all civilized species share," she continued. "They frequently defy authority, challenge established systems, and worst of all, they innovate without permission." A wave of concerned murmurs rippled through the chamber. Innovation without oversight was considered dangerous by most council species. Their technological advancement followed careful, prescribed paths established over millennia. In the observation gallery, junior researcher Kilora watched with growing concern. She had spent the past year studying human emergency responses and disaster relief efforts. She had witnessed their capacity for selfless action, their ability to unite in crisis, their drive to help even those different from themselves. But who would believe a junior researcher over the renowned Ambassador Vexterra? The ambassador's presentation continued, showing scenes of human spacecraft with their crude designs, their habit of modifying and improving technology, rather than following standard templates. She emphasized their resistance to conformity, their celebration of individual achievement over collective stability. What she didn't show was humans rushing into burning buildings to save strangers, global relief efforts mobilizing within hours of natural disasters, or countless small acts of daily kindness that Kilora had documented. The Council's chief administrator, a towering crystalline being named Zorax, raised an appendage. "Your evidence is compelling, Ambassador. What do you recommend?" "We must establish a quarantine zone around their solar system," Vexterra declared. "Their infection of individualism and uncontrolled innovation cannot be allowed to spread. We should." A priority alert suddenly flashed across all communication channels, interrupting her presentation. The message was brief but devastating. A highly aggressive synthetic virus had broken out on 3 major worlds, spreading rapidly through both biological and synthetic species. Existing medical protocols were failing. Vexterra felt a surge of satisfaction. Surely this would prove her point about the need for careful control and established procedures. But then she saw something that made her scales pale. Early analysis suggested the virus originated from an abandoned research facility, one belonging to her own species. As the council erupted in panic, Kilora quietly began compiling her research on human medical innovation and crisis response. She had a feeling they would need it very soon. Sometimes the most dangerous quality in a species was not their capacity for chaos, but their ability to thrive within it. The quarantine recommendation would have to wait. A greater crisis was unfolding, one that would test all of Vexterra's assumptions about humanity's place in the galaxy. And unknown to her, humans were about to demonstrate exactly why unpredictability and innovation might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The synthetic virus moved faster than anyone had predicted. Within days, it had adapted to jump between organic and synthetic systems, corrupting both biological neural networks and artificial processors. The Galactic Union's carefully maintained order began to crack. In her private research pod, Junior researcher Kilora watched the infection rates climb across 3 major worlds. The virus had already overwhelmed the standardized medical protocols that had served the galaxy for millennia. The Unified Medical Council's response was predictably rigid. Apply the established procedures, just more intensively. "It's not working," she muttered, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with frustration. The observation screens showed overwhelming evidence that traditional approaches were failing. Advanced civilizations with millions of years of medical knowledge were watching helplessly as their populations succumbed to the virus. Meanwhile, Ambassador Vexterra had been tasked with managing the political fallout. Her scales had lost their usual luster as she dealt with accusations about her species' role in the crisis. The virus had indeed originated from an abandoned research facility of her people, created during an earlier, more warlike period of their history. The High Council convened an emergency session, their usual ceremonial proceedings abandoned in favor of urgent action. Representatives from affected worlds demanded immediate solutions, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of translated demands. Kilra watched from her observer's position as various species proposed solutions, each following their own millennia-old protocols. The Crystalline Collective suggested planetary quarantine fields. The Quantum Consciousness proposed uploading affected populations to protected servers. The Biosynthetic Alliance recommended reverting all systems to ancient pre-integration standards. None of them suggested looking beyond the established methods. Taking a deep breath, Kylera activated her communication implant. Breaking protocol, she transmitted her research directly to the Council's emergency channel. Thousands of recordings filled their screens. Humans responding to viral outbreaks, creating vaccines, adapting treatments, and most importantly, innovating solutions in real time. "The humans have faced similar challenges on a smaller scale," she announced, her voice trembling but determined. "They've developed methods to combat rapidly mutating viruses, both biological and digital." Ambassador Vexterra's scales flickered with outrage. "You dare interrupt the Council with information about an unproven species? Their crude methods have worked." Kylera interrupted, highlighting specific cases. "Humans don't just follow established protocols. They improve them. They adapt. They innovate. And right now, that's exactly what we need." The chamber fell silent as the Council processed this suggestion. The idea of seeking help from an unapproved species was unprecedented, but the infection rates continued to climb on their displays, and the traditional methods were failing. Chief Administrator Zorax's crystalline form shimmered thoughtfully. "The risk of exposure to human unpredictability must be weighed against the current crisis. If we request their assistance, they'll help," Kylera said confidently. "My research shows that humans consistently aid others in crisis, even at great risk to themselves. It's one of their most persistent traits." Vexterra moved to object, but a new alert silenced her. The virus had reached the primary data centers of the quantum consciousness. One of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy was facing potential extinction. "We need a solution now," Zorax declared. "Researcher Kylera, prepare your data on human medical capabilities. Ambassador Vexterra, despite your reservations, you will lead the delegation to Earth. The humans' tendency toward chaos and innovation may be our only hope." As the Council chamber erupted in discussion, Kylera quickly gathered her research materials. She had spent a year studying human responses to crisis, and now everything she had learned would be put to the test. The galaxy was about to discover whether humanity's dangerous qualities, their creativity, their adaptability, their willingness to defy convention, might be exactly what was needed to save them all. The question was, would the rigid structures of galactic civilization bend enough to accept help from a species they had been prepared to quarantine? And would humanity, despite being judged and rejected, still extend their hand to help? The answer would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it truly meant to be an advanced civilization. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the hastily assembled United Earth Council, her holographic presentation showing the spread of the alien virus across 3 worlds. The emergency meeting had been called within hours of the Galactic Union's reluctant request for help, and humanity's response was anything but predictable. They'd been watching us for years, judged us unworthy of contact, and now they need our help. General Santos voiced what many were thinking. The room filled with murmurs of agreement. Yes, Sarah replied simply. And we're going to give it to them. The room fell silent. Ambassador Vextara and researcher Kilora watched from their observation pod, their translators working overtime to process the rapid exchanges that followed. The virus is a hybrid threat, Sarah continued, pulling up complex molecular structures. It attacks both organic neural pathways and synthetic systems. Traditional treatments fail because they try to address one or the other, but humanity has something unique to offer. She gestured, and her team started distributing data tablets. We've been developing adaptive nanotech for medical applications. Our research combines biological and digital systems in ways the Galactic Union considers unorthodox. It's exactly why they were going to quarantine us. Kildra's bioluminescence pulsed with excitement as she watched the humans work. There was no central authority dictating the response. Instead, research teams across Earth were already sharing data, proposing solutions, building on each other's ideas in real time. Dr. Chen, Vextara interrupted, her scales shifting nervously. Our protocols require extensive testing before. With respect, Ambassador, Sarah cut in. Your protocols are why the virus is winning. We don't have time for millennium-old procedures. We need to innovate, adapt, and act now. The next 48 hours were unlike anything the alien observers had ever seen. Research labs worldwide began collaborating spontaneously. Quantum computing facilities offered processing power. Pharmaceutical companies opened their databases. Private space firms volunteered their fleets. In her observation log, Kylera wrote, "Humans don't wait for permission to help. They don't follow a predetermined path. They see a problem and throw themselves at it from every angle until something works." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a video game developer turned neural interface researcher, recognized a pattern in the virus's code that matched certain AI behaviors in advanced gaming systems. It's not just a virus, she explained to the combined human-alien task force. It's playing a game with our responses. Every time we follow standard procedures, it adapts because it knows what we're going to do next. Sarah's team incorporated this insight into their nanobots, programming them with randomized response patterns that the virus couldn't predict. They added elements of chaos theory and even social behavior algorithms derived from studying human crowd dynamics. This is highly irregular, Vextara protested, watching the humans essentially gameplay medical treatment. The potential risks are less than the certainty of failure if we do nothing. Sarah finished. Sometimes the biggest risk is being too afraid to take one. The first batch of treatment nanobots was ready in record time by galactic standards. Traditional testing protocols would have required years. The humans had done it in days. We've modified our deep space vessels to serve as mobile production and treatment facilities, Sarah briefed the United Earth Council. We can reach all 3 infected worlds within a week. But there's a catch. She displayed the neural interface requirements. The nanobots need guidance to adapt to different species' neural patterns. They'll need human pilots directly connected to the system. The mental strain could be significant. Before she finished speaking, hands were raised across the room. Volunteers, not just from the military or scientific community. Teachers, artists, taxi drivers, students. Humans from all walks of life, ready to risk their minds to save alien lives. Kilra watched in amazement as the humans prepared for launch. Their ships weren't elegant like Union vessels. They were sturdy, practical, modified in ways that would make Union engineers faint. Just like their creators, they didn't follow the rules. They got the job done. As the first vessels prepared to depart, Vextara found herself reevaluating everything she thought she knew about what made a species advanced. Perhaps there was something to be said for unpredictability after all. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as too chaotic, too innovative, too willing to help without checking the rulebook first. They were about to learn just how powerful those qualities could be. The modified Earth vessels emerged from hyperspace near Centauri Prime, the first of the infected worlds. Maya Rodriguez, neural interface pilot of the medical transport Hope's Horizon, felt her breath catch at the sight. The crystalline cities of the quantum consciousness glittered like diamonds against the planet's purple surface, but dark patches showed where the virus had taken hold. Neural interface active in 3 minutes, her medical officer reported. Maya nodded, trying to ignore the tremor in her hands. No human had ever attempted to interface with alien neural networks on this scale before. In the ship's laboratory, Dr. Sarah Chen made final adjustments to the nanobot programming, while Ambassador Vexterra watched with poorly concealed anxiety. The ambassador's scales had taken on a pale, sickly hue as she observed these humans, casually breaking virtually every medical protocol the Union had established. Treatment teams, report status, Sarah called over the command channel. One by one, the other ships responded. They had brought every vessel Earth could modify in time. Cargo ships, research vessels, even converted passenger liners. Their crews were an equally eclectic mix. Doctors working alongside programmers, soldiers next to school teachers. Multiple quantum signature distortions detected, the sensors officer announced. The virus is affecting the planet's neural networks more severely than predicted. Maya took a deep breath as the neural interface countdown began. On screens around her, other pilots on other ships did the same. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, using human consciousness to guide adaptive nanobots through alien neural networks, both organic and synthetic. Interface in 3, 2, 1. The sensation was indescribable. Maya felt her consciousness expand, merging with the nanobot swarm as it entered the infected networks. She could sense the other pilots, their minds linking together in ways humans had never experienced before. The virus's code patterns swirled around them like a digital storm. It's beautiful, someone whispered over the neural link. The alien networks were vast and intricate, far more complex than anything humanity had built. But where there should have been order and harmony, the virus had introduced chaos and decay. Then they saw it. The virus wasn't just destroying. It was learning, evolving, becoming something new. The Union's rigid protocols had given it a predictable pattern to exploit. Now it faced something entirely different: human unpredictability. The virus is adapting faster than simulated, Sarah reported, her voice tense. Neural load on the pilots is exceeding safety margins. Maya felt it, the strain of maintaining the connection, of guiding the nanobots through increasingly complex neural pathways. Warning signals flashed across her interface. Other pilots were struggling too. She could feel their pain through the link. "We need to pull back," Vexterra insisted. "The risk to your pilots." "No." Maya's voice was strained but determined. "We can handle it. The nanobots are learning, adapting, just like us." Through the neural link, the pilots began sharing the load, supporting each other in ways the interface designers hadn't thought possible. When one faltered, others compensated. They weren't following any protocol. They were innovating in real time, their shared consciousness becoming something entirely new. The virus fought back. It launched attacks through quantum pathways, trying to overwhelm the human neural network. Several pilots screamed as their interfaces overloaded. Emergency medical teams rushed to stabilize them. "We're losing containment," Sarah warned. "The virus is targeting our command and control systems." Maya felt it, the virus probing their defenses, looking for patterns to exploit. But humans didn't follow patterns, not when it mattered most. Each pilot responded differently, unpredictably. The nanobots, guided by this chaos of human consciousness, became equally unpredictable. "Look!" Kylra's excited voice cut through the tension. On the main display, patches of healthy network began to appear. The nanobots were succeeding, transforming the virus's own adaptability against it. But the cost was mounting. More pilots were dropping out, their minds unable to handle the strain. Maya felt blood trickling from her nose as she pushed beyond all safe limits. Through the neural link, she sensed the same determination in her fellow pilots. They had come to save lives, and they would not stop until the job was done. The Union would never ask such sacrifice of its people, Vexterra whispered, watching humans willingly risk their minds and lives for aliens who had rejected them. That's exactly why we're here, Sarah replied softly. We don't wait to be asked. As the battle for Centauri Prime reached its climax, the galaxy was learning an important lesson about humanity. Sometimes the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the most elegant technology or the most established protocols. Sometimes it's the one willing to break all the rules to help others in need. 3 months after the crisis began, the Grand Archive of the Galactic Union was alive with unprecedented activity. The crystal spires pulsed with new data as species throughout the galaxy studied what had become known as the Centauri Intervention. Ambassador Vexterra stood before the High Council once again, but this time her purpose was very different. Esteemed Council, she began, her scales now shimmering with a humility that would have been unthinkable before the crisis. I come before you to correct the record regarding humanity. The chamber was packed, not just with council members, but with representatives from the worlds that humans had saved. The quantum consciousness had sent a full delegation, their crystalline forms still bearing traces of the virus's impact, but gleaming with renewed life. Dr. Sarah Chen and Maya Rodriguez sat in the observer's gallery alongside Kilora, whose research had helped bridge the gap between worlds. Maya still showed signs of neural strain. All the interface pilots did, but her eyes were bright with purpose. My previous assessment of humanity was not merely incomplete, Vexterra continued. It was fundamentally flawed. I saw their unpredictability as a weakness, their willingness to break protocol as a danger. I failed to understand that these very qualities make them extraordinary. The holographic displays activated, but this time they showed different scenes. Humans working alongside alien medical teams, pilots pushing themselves beyond safe limits to save others, researchers sharing discoveries freely without concern for protocol or profit. During the crisis, we witnessed something our civilization had forgotten in its pursuit of perfect order, she said. The power of controlled chaos, of innovation born from necessity, of sacrifice freely given without calculation of return. Sarah watched as the council members absorbed this. Many had opposed requesting Earth's help, seeing it as a dangerous precedent. Now they had to confront the reality that their rigid adherence to protocol had nearly led to catastrophe. The human neural interface pilots, Vexterra continued, did something our scientists had deemed impossible. They not only guided the nanobots but adapted with them, creating new solutions in real time. Many suffered severe neural strain, yet when we suggested pulling back to protect them, they refused. Maya shifted uncomfortably at the attention. Like many pilots, she still had headaches and occasional neural feedback, but she considered it a small price to pay. The friendships formed with alien species through the neural link had changed her forever. What we witnessed was not mere technological achievement, Kilora added, standing to address the council. It was the demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, their ability to face the unknown not with fear, but with determination, to help others not because of protocol, but because of principle. The council chamber hummed with discussion. The crisis had shaken the foundations of their civilization, challenging millennia of assumptions about progress and protocol. The quantum consciousness representative rose, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of deep meaning. We exist today because humans were willing to risk themselves for a species that had judged them unworthy. They transmitted. Our children will know their names. Maya Rodriguez, Sarah Chen, and countless others who reached across the gulf of space to save those they had never met. Chief Administrator Zorax's crystalline form shimmered thoughtfully. The question before us is clear. How do we respond to a species that has demonstrated such extraordinary qualities? If I may, Sarah stood, her voice carrying across the chamber. We don't seek to change your civilization or impose our ways. We offer something different, a bridge between order and chaos, tradition and innovation. The crisis showed that both approaches have value. The council deliberated for hours, but in the end, the decision was unanimous. Earth would be welcomed into the Galactic Union not despite its differences, but because of them. A new era of cooperation would begin, one that balanced the wisdom of ancient protocols with the vitality of human innovation. As the session concluded, Vexterra approached the human delegation. "I once feared your species would infect us with chaos," she admitted. "Instead, you taught us that sometimes chaos is the best response to crisis, that helping others isn't about following rules, it's about following your heart." Maya smiled, touching the neural interface scar at her temple. "We're all shaped by our choices," she said. "Our greatest choice is whether to reach out or hold back when others need us." The grand crystal spires of the archive glowed with new data, recording not just the technical details of humanity's solution, but the deeper lesson they had taught the galaxy. Sometimes the most advanced civilization isn't the one that has eliminated chaos, but the one that has learned to embrace it in service of others. The galaxy had called humans unpredictable, dangerous, too willing to break the rules. They were right about everything except the danger. Because in the end, it was precisely these qualities that had saved them all.